Deep Space Nine is a fan favorite show amongst superfans of the Star Trek universe. It's beloved for its unique cast of characters, its emphasis on family and redemption, and its fearless analysis of the effects of war on all parties involved. It's been decades since the last episode aired, and I am finally ready to go through the series for the very first time. Join me as I share my most and least favorite episodes, character highlights, and honest reactions to this epic show. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Savage Stream, the weekly live stream where we talk all things Star Trek. And today we are going to be continuing my journey through Deep Space Nine by talking about the highs and lows from season 3. So I'm going to share my 3 lowest or least favorite episodes from the season in no particular order, and my 3 most favorite episodes of the season in no particular order. And then I'll do a little bit of a rant at the end of just any notable episodes that come to mind. I'll kind of scroll through season 3 and see if there's anything else I want to kind of mention. But if you have a favorite episode from season 3, be sure to drop it in the comments and let me know why you love it. I want to say hello to everybody who's here live and hello to everyone watching on the replay. If you are watching on the replay, timestamps are below so you can jump ahead at any time. But without further ado, let's get to my first low episode, first of the bottom 3. Again, in no particular order. Let's go. Season 3, Episode 3, The House of Quark. Quark claims to have killed a Klingon in self-defense, gaining unexpected fame. He's then dragged into Klingon politics when the dead man's wife, Grilka, asks him to help her protect her house from being dishonored and absorbed by a rival. Quark uses his cunning, not his strength, to expose the corruption of the rival in the Klingon High Council and to help Grilka preserve her family's honor. So, the episode's fine, I guess. Like, it's a Quark episode. There are a lot of Quark episodes. I think I said back in my review of season 1 that there were so many Quark heavy and O'Brien heavy episodes that really surprised me because I'm used to TNG and Voyager, and the captain is usually the star of the show, and then sometimes the other bridge crew. But Deep Space Nine is so different. There are very few Cisco-centered episodes, at least in the first 3 seasons. There's one here or there, but it's not like the Cisco show, which is really surprising. That being said, the Klingon episodes tend to be pretty goofy. Like they're kind of lighthearted, comedic relief. This episode is no exception to that. Worf kind of gets into it with this Klingon person at his bar, and the guy, I think he like trips or something and falls on his own knife or whatever. And then Quark goes around being like, I slayed him. I'm such a bad, I'm such a bad guy or whatever, so that he could tell the story and get more customers. But then, of course, he gets in all kinds of trouble, and then Rom comes forward and tells the truth, and it's just like a whole big mess. So the reason why this made the lowest of the list is I don't know. I didn't love Grilka. I didn't love the whole, oh, we're married now, and let's see Quark as a Klingon, and I don't know. It just wasn't my thing. Just wasn't my thing, especially in this season where there were like season 3, I'm actually quite impressed. There are quite a few episodes that I really, really liked, like legitimately liked. And I will say for season 1 and 2 of TNG, like season 1 was fine, but there were some episodes that I was like, okay, this is actually good. And then there was several episodes that I was like, this is really trash. And then there's kind of like the totally fine episodes, right? Season 3 of Deep Space Nine is pretty good. Like many of the episodes I legitimately like. It's not just like, okay, whatever, it's Star Trek. It's like, okay, bring it on. So this episode was fine, but just not my favorite. And it kind of is at the point where when I see a Quark-centered episode, I kind of like flinch inside because I'm like, okay, what's this going to be? I know there's going to be buffoonery. I know it's going to be silly and goofy, which is good, especially since this show gets so dark and heavy. It's nice to have the light, happy moments. But then part of me is always like, is this story going to be something that I like, or is this just going to be really dumb and a waste of time? And I'll wish I would have skipped it, but I can't skip it because I don't know how good it's going to be. Anyways, back to my complaining about this episode. I was supposed to say what I liked about it. I like the outfits. I always like Klingon outfits, so that was a win. That was cool. We get to see the Klingon High Council again, which is fun. We get the House of Quark. He actually has a house for a hot second, which is fun. We get to see a woman kind of fighting for the right to lead her house, which she does win in the end, so that's good. We have Quark using his cunning because he was not going to win in a fight, so that's also good. We also have Quark working out the books because the rival who's trying to take over her house did some kind of like shady business deals with her husband, and that's what put the family in this precarious financial position, but Quark is a Ferengi and very good at business and stuff. And so he was able to look through the books and uncover the deception and everything else. So I like that Quark's using his superpower here. So those are the things I liked about this episode. But overall, I didn't love it. It was not my favorite. It was an easy one to put on the low list, like easy. Let me know if you agree, or if you are here for the House of Quark. Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the comments. I'm going to read the comments, and then I'm going to go to the next episode on my low list. And by the way, what was I going to say? By the way, I don't know. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. By the way, I am doing this, this first time watch through Deep Space Nine, and each week I'm going to be going over the highs and lows of each successive season, all the way till season 7. So be sure to subscribe if you want to come join me for those conversations and see a first-time viewer's experience through Deep Space Nine. I am a Trekkie. I do love some Star Trek, but this is my first time through this particular show. So if you want to join me on that journey, definitely be sure to subscribe. Okay, I'm going to check the chat, and then we're going to go to the second low episode on my list. Hello, hello, hello. Yeah, this isn't a Dax episode. Let me see. Don't worry, we've got a Dax episode on my low list. If you were concerned, we have a Dax episode on my low list for sure. Hello to everybody who's here live. Super excited to have you guys here live. Patty, I think you've been trying to come live to one of these live streams for like a year. So I'm super excited that you got to be here live. Galron was outraged at the use of money to bring down a house. Yeah, it was so great to see Galron again. I feel like Deep Space Nine is like, it's almost like Lower Decks, not in any other way but this way, in the sense that it has a lot of Easter eggs, a lot of throwbacks, and a lot of connections, like so many. It makes sense that Voyager wouldn't have a ton of connections to older shows because they're supposed to be in the Delta Quadrant doing stuff that's new. Even though DS9 is near the Gamma Quadrant because the wormhole and it's got some new situations, they, for some reason, play with a lot of other characters we've seen a lot, or situations we've heard of before. They do a lot of throwbacks and callbacks to TOS, and I love that. So seeing Galron again, I was super excited. You know, I was like, oh wow, like, and I love his big eyes when he's like, Rory, like, I don't know, it was great. So I was like, oh, we get to see like Klingon High Council, we get to see Galron again. That was fun. And I kind of love it whenever they do that. I was so surprised, by the way, you guys all know this, but when I started watching and I saw Gul Dukat, I was like, freaking Gul Dukat. Here he goes again. What is this mofo doing here? So I think we only saw Gul Dukat and Gul Evek. I think those are the two Cardassians we saw more than once in TNG. I think they each had 2 or 3 appearances, I think. And then all the other Guls were just kind of like one-offs. But when I first saw Gul Dukat in this, I was like, here, why is he here? What are you doing? Why are you always messing with the Federation? Go somewhere. But as I kept watching the show, I'm like, wow, they really like made Dukat a thing. Like they made him a full-on recurring character in the storylines going on here. He wasn't just a, oh, here he goes again kind of situation, which I was really surprised by. And again, having Galron be a full, you know, like not super full. We only see him in a few cameos, like a few episodes, but to have him come back in this, I also feel about Dukat the way I feel about O'Brien, that they brought O'Brien into this and then made him a full character. Whereas before he was just on the Enterprise, just kind of hanging out, just seeing what everybody was up to, you know, and here he has a backstory and he's got relationships and he's got friends and he's got kids and he's got like all of these other facets of his life, which I find fascinating. Anyways, that has nothing to do with this episode. I'm going to check the chat and then we'll go to the next episode on the list. I was checking the chat and then I got distracted by Galron. Yes, I can barely remember this episode. I don't know. You might like it. It's not like it's not like a terrible episode. It's fine. It's just fine. I think for this show, for Deep Space Nine, my standard of terrible episodes and wonderful episodes are very different from what they would be for TNG, for example. So terrible episode, it's not a terrible episode. It's just like a fine episode because the bar is so high. There's so many episodes that I legitimately enjoy, and this wasn't one of them. So that's why it was on the lowest part of the list. It's definitely not topping my list, but I don't hate it. Yeah, kind of like that. I like the Klingon divorce ritual. Yeah, the divorce ritual was so ridiculous because I was like, he was like, okay, I want to get an annulment or divorce. And she's like, okay. And she just like backhanded him and spit on him. And she was like, we are now divorced. I was like, okay, it is efficient. And also their wedding was like 2 seconds long because it was just like, do you, I do, you may kiss the bride, you are now married.
But then later on, because I have been watching more of Deep Space Nine, I'm not finished yet, but I have seen the part where Dax and Worf get married, and they had a whole thing. They had like a whole ceremony, and I was like, oh, I thought you guys just kind of went like, do you, we're good. But I figure that in the Klingon culture, like in the American culture, you can have different levels of weddings. You can have like the courthouse wedding, which is what Grilka and Quark had, or you could have like a full-on ceremony where people have to approve and all of that. So that was kind of fun to see more backstory. That has nothing to do with this episode, though. I bet it's the Dax episode I'd pick too. I guess we'll find out when, Grace. Also, DS9 Starfleet selected the B team to man the station without realizing it was next to the wormhole. Oh, you're right. You're right. You're totally right. It was kind of a throwaway thing. It was like, just try to keep the Bajorans independent and try to keep the Cardassians from bullying them too much and try to help everybody kind of get it back together, because the Cardassians left the station just totally destroyed. Obviously, they left Bajor plundered and looted and all destroyed as well. And so it was more of like this humanitarian mission of help them get back on their feet and just kind of maintain the status quo. And then when the wormhole opened, they were like, dang it, everybody, right? The Bajorans were like, yes, this is going to put us on the map. And Sisko was like, fine, I guess I'll stay because, emissary, whatevs. And then the Cardassians were like, we gave up too soon. Now with the wormhole, we want it back. We want Tarek Nor back. We want Bajor back. And it's like, too little, too late, buddy. You guys had your 60 years and you didn't find the wormhole in the 60 years. So we're done with that. You can go home now. You're right. They totally picked the B team. And I guess they were kicking themselves for that. The episode was great for background noise while playing Call of Duty. I will take your word for it. It was funny to watch the Klingon High Council listening to financial reports and trying to follow along. I forgot about that part. It actually wasn't Dukat in TNG. Same actor, but he was Gul Macet in that. I remember hearing Gul Dukat's name in TNG, though, even if it was a different actor. Like, I remember Dukat. And I remember it more than once because when I got to Deep Space Nine, I was like, how is this guy still here? So definitely feel free to Google it while I'm doing the live stream and let me know. But that's my recollection is. Glory to you and your house. Gowron was the most unintentionally funny Klingon. So great. Glory to you and your house. And the big eyes that he does is like, the most famous Klingon meme is Gowron. People who don't even like Star Trek know the Gowron meme. Absolutely. There was episodes I skipped in season 2 and season 3 of Voyager. There are no episodes that I skipped in DS9. I'm guessing you mean in the rewatch. So since it's my first watch, like I have to watch everything. But this is actually helpful because as I continue to watch the show, there are so many good episodes that it's kind of getting hard for me to find the low episodes. But what I've noticed is that if there's an episode where I want to skip, like where there's a moment where I'm like, okay, I just want to like get past this part, that tells me put it on the low list because something's happening here where you're just like, it's not holding your attention. So that's been helping me figure out my low episodes of future seasons. If only all divorces could be so cut and dry. No lawyers, no alimony, no drama. Nope, just a backhand and some spit. I guess if that's what people want. There's no Betazoid wedding in DS9. There is not, but we do see Lwaxana get married in DS9, but she's wearing clothes. So how far she has come. Okay, let's go to the next low episode on the list.
Season 3, Episode 10, Fascination. During a Bajoran festival on the station, Lwaxana Troi arrives and unknowingly spreads a telepathic virus that causes people to experience sudden romantic infatuations. Things start to boil over at a party where the guests just can't keep their hands off of each other. Thankfully, all of this is eventually cured and everyone goes back to normal.
Is it just me, or is it just really gross anytime Kira is kissing someone? Actually, that's not true. When she's Mirror Universe Kira, it's really sexy and seductive. But Prime Universe Kira, I don't know what that is. I don't know. I don't know if this was a choice of the actress to be like, I always just ram my face against someone. And if it's like a Bajoran thing, because you know how the Bajorans, they clap like this. So like maybe that's like a Bajoran makeout strategy. Anyways, that's not the point of this. Not surprisingly, a Lwaxana episode made my low list again because Lwaxana made the low list last week or the week before, whichever other one she was on. So this episode is a copy paste. We had this episode in TNG. I'm pretty sure, because I remember there were some Betazoids who came on the ship and then everybody was all horny, but I don't remember anything about it because obviously this is not an episode I love. Anyways, that is this episode, and it's just the worst. It's just the worst. Like, I think House of Quark was better because at least there was like this storyline where you're like, okay, what's going to happen? How's Quark going to get out of this? What is he going to stay married forever? Is he going to, like, what's going to happen? This episode, you're just kind of like, I don't know why everybody's like getting really horny for everybody. I don't know what's going on. I didn't know it was Lwaxana. I didn't even put that together. I was just irritated. I was irritated every time another character was like, so-and-so, I want you. I need to be with you. I was just kind of like, okay, so something's spreading. And then also, you think I would like this sort of thing because I am a microbiologist. I like the episodes where there's some kind of contagion and I can try to guess where it's coming from or where it's going or how it's affecting people. But this was very random. Like, I did not connect it to the fact that wherever Lwaxana happens to be walking, when she has amorous feelings towards Odo, that these pheromones are released. I didn't catch that. I was just kind of like, I was trying to think like, oh, maybe it's spreading from this person to that person. So I was watching the who was getting turned on, and it was making no sense. So the one thing that would keep my interest ended up not even being a thing. And in the end, it was like, well, Lwaxana, it's because it's like Betazoid menopause or something. I'm not really sure. And they were like, well, basically, like it's because you're at this age and you have this ability to do this, and because you have this unrequited feelings for Odo, you were affecting everybody on Deep Space Nine. And she's like, oops, she didn't know that. She's like, oops, sorry, and then Bashir's like, well, as long as, I don't even remember what the cure was, honestly. I think it was just, they just needed time for it to come out of their systems, drink a lot of water, have some naps. I'm not really sure what the cure was, but the cure was something simple. Either it was a hypo spray or it was just wait and it'll kind of come out of your system and they'll be fine. But just like, yeah, it's the lowest. It's on the low of the episodes from season 3. This whole premise, I was just like, okay, I guess it caused a little bit of drama for a second because Bareil was on the station to visit with Kira for a Bajoran festival. And then Bareil got infected while he was looking at Dax. So now he's into Jadzia. Jadzia got infected while she was looking at Cisco. So now she's into Cisco, which is weird because he still sees her as the old man. And that's got to mess with your mind. And then at some point it happens to Jake while he's looking at Kira. But then it happens to Kira while she's looking at Bashir. And then it's just this, I don't even know what shape that would make of a love something. It's like a love crown. It's just everything's connected. It's like a love murder board where everything's just connected. And then at the end, it's just like, okay, you guys will all be fine. And I was thinking, are there going to be awkward moments? Are people going to look at each other kind of weird in the turbo lifts or something? Like, oh yeah, I was making out with you in sickbay. Sorry, that was weird. Or are they just like, it's Starfleet, it's Tuesday, it happens. I don't know. I am a little bit curious about that. But only slightly. Not curious enough for this episode to go on for 1 minute longer than it needed to. Okay, on that note, I'm going to check the chat, and then we're going to go to my third low episode on the list, and then we'll switch over to the episodes that I really loved from season 3, and there were some super good ones. Okay, let's see. Yeah, exactly. Oh, the telepathic spice orgy episode. Yeah. And then they're all at a party when like all the connections are being made. So I was just thinking, this party, I would not want to be at this party. This is so awkward. And then to see Jake like, where's Kira? Where's Kira? It just was like, and I mean, they did it in a way that was very, very PG for Jake. It was fine. It was just like a boy who's infatuated. He wasn't trying to make out with her or hump her leg or anything weird. And I think Cisco handled it really well to just be like, sit down somewhere and stop calling her Nerys. I think that was all fine. But just this party was, I don't know. It just, it culminates in a party where everyone is just trying to hook up with everyone. It was just a weird moment. Lwaxana episodes are the worst. I will agree with you for the most part. I did see a Lwaxana episode that I did like. The one I just mentioned where she got married, which I don't remember what season that was or when that happened, but I actually liked that. And that's probably the only Lwaxana episode I liked, but I really liked it and I really liked her in it. And I really liked the storyline for her. That was a win. This was a L. This was not a win. Best thing this episode gave us is a Lower Decks plot. Exactly. Maybe it was Lower Decks I was thinking of and not TNG. Maybe it was a Lower Decks episode where 3 Betazoids came on board. Remind me of that, Windgrace, because you probably remember. This is a ripoff episode of when Sarek's emotions took over the Enterprise. I think this is a ripoff episode of The Naked Now from TNG, where there was like a horny virus that was going around infecting everybody in the ship. It's the episode where Tasha Yar hooks up with Data. And that was a ripoff of The Naked Time, where that exact same thing happened on the original Enterprise on TOS. So that's what I think it's a ripoff of, more than Sarek's emotions, because did Sarek's emotions make everybody horny? Oh, maybe it did. I don't know. I didn't see that episode. I will take your word for it, Robert. There are worse characters than Lwaxana. 1000% there are worse characters than Lwaxana. Lwaxana is kind of annoying, but she's not a bad person. Yeah, she's not actively trying to hurt people like a lot of the other characters in Deep Space Nine are. Lwaxana is just being herself, doing her thing, and if anything, she just loves Odo. And I mean, somebody loves Odo. Isn't that a good thing? She's a little aggressive in her love. I would not want to be the object of her love because she's a bit much, but I think it's sweet that somebody loves Odo just the way he is. He doesn't have to change. He can still be a shapeshifter. He can still be gruff and grumpy, and she loves him just the way he is. And I love that for her. And I love that about her, how she's just like, I love you just the way you are. You don't have to change for me. It reminds me of a TOS episode where there was a virus spread on the ship by touch that made the crew behave like they were drunk and uninhibited. Yep. That's The Naked Time, I'm pretty sure. I can't remember if Nog was in that episode or if he was affected. He was not in the episode, I don't think. Bareil friendzone Kira. Probably the first time that's ever happened to Kira. Yeah, seriously. And she got really mad, but she was just kind of like, I'm mad and whatever. And for some reason, he's all into Jadzia. And that was kind of it. I thought she would get more upset because at this point, like, they are definitely an item at this point when he's like, whatever, Kira, I want to be with Jadzia. So she took it much more easily than I would have in that situation. We have a lot of new Borg drones here. Yay! Love it. Okay, so PS2 Chipper has just gifted 5 memberships to the channel. So if you want to join as a channel member, those are first come, first serve. And let me know you're in the membership by dropping a colon. So you do colon, write the word colon, we get another colon, or you can do colon, the word Borg, and then colon. So we can have a lot of like Borg in the chat. I'm very proud of that little icon, by the way. Yes, exactly. Borg colon. Perfect. The 3 Betazoid women appear in lower decks. Okay. It ended up being a T'Lyn problem. Okay, it was lower decks. Because I was remembering that episode, but I thought it was TNG, and I was like, what episode could that be? Like, when did that ever happen? Okay, so it happened in lower decks. Yeah, that was the best thing about this episode, is that it made that episode. Lwaxana was thirsty AF. I could not have said it better. Joy and peace with you. It's the gift of Landru. That rhymes. What is that from? Let's see where. Yes. I love seeing the Borg. So do the little the colon, like the actual colon, the dot, and then the word colon, and then the dot again, and then it'll come up. So it'll look like that. It'll come up like that. But you'll have like a little picture, not like I don't have a picture. Anyways, okay, moving on to the next episode on the list. This is my 3rd low episode of the 3 low episodes before I get to the high episodes that I really, really enjoyed.
Season 3, Episode 10.
Oh, wait, we did that one. Sorry, this one.
Season 3, Episode 25, Facets. Jadzia Dax undergoes a ritual which allows her to interact with the previous hosts of the Dax symbiont. She uses her friends as physical vessels, and throughout the ritual, she learns more and more about herself. She also learns why Curzon washed her out of the program all those years ago.
So, Wind Grace, was this the one you also picked for your low Jadzia episode of the season? In this episode, Jadzia has the chance to talk with all of her past hosts. What do I like about this episode? I like, again, that we get more backstory about the Trill. Every time there's a Jadzia-heavy episode, we get more backstory about the Trill, which I find fascinating. It's great for world building. Their culture seems super interesting. The relationship between the symbiont and the hosts and each other and the hosts and the outside world are really interesting. I like the dynamics of that. What I also liked was when the memories of Curzon went into Odo, how he was able to shapeshift into a Trill. I was like, that's pretty neat, right? Because of course he's the only one who could take on the visible physical characteristics of a Trill, unlike all the other friends who chose to be host surrogates. They took on the personalities, and they took on maybe the mannerisms, but we actually saw the spots and stuff show up on Odo. So I thought that was super cool. We also got to see how Curzon acted. Not like we didn't already know, but we got to see more of it when Odo was like drinking and laughing and joking and let's go play some tango. You know, we got to see more of that personality, which I thought was really fun. So those were the good things. The things I didn't love about this episode. One, I don't understand why this ceremony is necessary. Like, I get that she gets to talk one-on-one with her past hosts while they're inhabiting one of her friends. But I thought that she has access to all of their memories and emotions and everything. So can't she just access them at will? Is that not a thing? That I'm a little fuzzy on. Like, why was this necessary? Can't she access absolutely everything about them at any time, at any moment, whenever she needs to or wants to? That was what I was under the impression of. So I was kind of not sure what the purpose of this ritual was. And it was like, oh, it's so you can talk to them. So I guess accessing their memories is not the same as talking to them. That's fair. But what does she need to talk to them about that she can't just access their memories for? I don't know. I had some big question marks about the need for this ceremony. Okay, so we go through with the ceremony and we get different parts of her jumping into different cast members. Now, normally I like this sort of thing. I like seeing the characters that we know and love getting to play somebody different because it kind of pushes them out of their comfort zone and it helps us see a different aspect of really that actor's skill and ability, which I think is always fun. In this case, though, I did not have fun. I didn't like Kira's like old lady voice, and I don't know, I didn't like Cisco's pirate voice. Basically the character he was being when he was the serial killer version of one of the previous hosts. What was his name? Jeriel or something, whatever his name was. That was the same character I feel like he played in the Mirror Universe when he was like evil Captain Cisco. So it almost feels like whenever they have to play these people, it's like one other gear to shift into. It's like, I'm either this or I'm that. And it just, I don't know. I just didn't really buy it. I didn't know the point of her talking to the serial killer either. She's just like, well, I have to talk to all of them. About what? What are we talking about? Like, I don't know. Anyways, but that's not actually my biggest complaint. All those things are complaints just because I didn't think they made a lot of sense or went anywhere or had any point other than her being like, oh, now I know why I hold my hands behind my back because you held your hands behind your back and that's why I do it. But she didn't know that before this exact moment. Okay. Here's why I really don't like this episode. So we knew before, one of my low episodes from last week was when Jadzia was training an initiate who wanted to become a joined Trill. And the initiate was afraid of working with Jadzia because Jadzia used to be Curzon, or because the Dax used to be in Curzon, and Curzon was like the hardest person or whatever to impress. And Jadzia was like, yeah, well, when it was my turn to be an initiate, Curzon actually washed me out of the program. He kicked me out and he said I wasn't good enough. And then I was like, I'm going to show him. And so I reapplied to the program and then I got in. And I never know why he did that, but it was to make me stronger or whatever. So in this episode, now she gets to come face to face with Curzon and finally find out, why did you kick me out? So apparently, even though they were joined, she could not access that. She couldn't access those memories. She didn't know why Curzon did that. She could never access his thoughts, his memories, his emotions, his experiences of any of that. Are the previous hosts able to like censor what they do and don't share? I'm not really sure. But in any case, when he pops out and now he's in Odo and they're talking about it and she's like, why did you wash me out? Why didn't you believe in me? The Odo Curzon combo turns to her and is like, well, it's because you were just so beautiful. You were so beautiful. And she's like, oh, you were in love with me? And he's like, how could I not when you're so beautiful? And I was just kind of like, so wait a minute. So you were her mentor. You were her trainer. You were the one who was supposed to determine whether or not she was good enough to get a symbiont. But you fell in love with her because she's hot. So you torpedoed her career because you didn't want to face your complicated feelings for her. This is weird. And then he tells her when she's, then she said something about like, do you regret giving me your symbiont or something like that? Or like that I happen to be the one who received your symbiont. And he was like, no, to the contrary, I was so glad when you reapplied because I felt really guilty for torpedoing your career and like all your hopes and dreams just because I was lusting after you and didn't know what to do with my feelings. So I was really glad that you went for it a second time. I was like cheering you on from behind the stage. So then when it was my time to die, I was happy to pass my symbiont on to you. And she was like, okay, I understand. And then she goes, while he's like caressing her face and talking about, well, I was such an old man. You were such a young person. Because remember, Curzon was like, I don't know, he was elderly, and Jadzia was like 21 or something like that, like very, very young compared to Curzon. So he was like, I knew you'd never want to be with me. And that's why I just couldn't be around you. Mind you, when we saw this initiate situation with Jadzia, that whole thing took like 3 days, maybe 5. Maybe there were some off-camera days. So he fell madly in love with her in like a week and then torpedoed her career in that same week. And it's just, I don't know. It just was a dumb explanation. Then, while he's caressing her face and stuff, she's just like, Curzon, you need to come back, because he didn't want to come back, by the way. He didn't want to rejoin with her, he didn't want to take his spirit or whatever out of Odo. And apparently he was saying Odo didn't want that either, because Odo was loving being able to like eat and drink and be a humanoid. And I totally get that. Odo was like, this is great. And not only was he able to eat and drink and be a humanoid, but he was able to be like a really ruckus, rowdy, super fun humanoid. So he was able to do all like these crazy things without a lot of the cares or hangups or self-consciousness that other humanoids might have had. Like, if Odo had merged with Worf or something, it would have been a totally different experience than merging with Curzon. So Curzon's like, nope, Odo likes this. I like this. I'm just going to stay here. I don't need to go back. And Jadzia is like, you need to come back because I feel incomplete without your part with all the others. That's what makes me whole. And he was like, but if I come back, you'll feel all the guilt and shame that I feel. And I don't want you to feel that. So again, this was something he hid from her that she wasn't able to access. I don't know. But then she goes, but then we can be together the way we were meant to be. And he's like, oh, you're just so beautiful. Okay, I'll remerge with you. And I just didn't love this episode. The end. So I'm going to check the chat and then we'll go to the next episode on the list. So now we're switching gears and we're going to be talking about the episodes I super loved from season 3. There are 3 that I super loved. There's a 4th one that's an honorable mention. And then there's like a whole smattering of episodes that I think were great, but I'm trying to keep the list shortish. Okay. So now I'm going to check the chats. Yes. I love all the little Borg. Love all the little colons. Love it. No, it was Meridian. I like the Kurdo Ozon in this. Meridian. Which one's Meridian? Remind me which one's Meridian so I don't look it up right now. Surprise! It was a different one. I like this one a lot and kind of wish Odo and Curzon had remained joined for the rest of the show. Yeah, so I liked that for Odo, that Odo got to have a personality that wasn't grumpy. That wasn't just I'm grumpy, but like had to have so much more personality. But also, that's not the Odo we know and love. So he had to grow on his own. He couldn't take the shortcut. He couldn't take the cheat code of just getting all of Curzon's charisma. It was cool to see the other actors out of character in this episode. Avery was so intense, and Renee looked like he was having so much fun. I hope he was, because Curzon seemed like a fun dude. There was ambiguity about how much the Trill hosts can access, and that serves to undercut the episode. I agree. And it's really funny, too, because we get so much backstory on the Trill that we never had before, and I think it's fascinating. So I don't want to be too picky about it not being perfect in every episode, like about things not lining up. It doesn't even have, like, I think they are consistent enough. Like, I think they do more than a good enough job. It's not an easy thing to keep track of everything you've ever said about a specific character or species over the course of episodes, let alone the course of seasons. So I think they're pretty consistent. That's really a nitpicky thing of like, why can't she access this? But I do think that nitpicky thing is important for this episode because it's like, oh, it's your ceremony to meet your previous hosts, but your previous hosts are inside you at all times. So what's the meeting? I like, that's the only reason why I'm picking on that nitpicky thing is because I feel like it's important specifically for this episode, but really not any others. Jadzia episodes were either her being a strumpet or dealing with Trill trauma. Yep, I agree. Her character was given a short shrift. Agreed. Yeah, I agree. I think they could, I mean, sometimes she had some good episodes, like Josh had mentioned last week about the Blood Oath one, which I really loved. So she has good episodes too, but then there's episodes like this, which are not bad, but were not my favorite. I think the ritual is so she can get details on memories and not just the memory itself. Like, he can explain why he washed her out. I feel like that would be a memory, though. Like, I feel like the memory of being madly in love with her would be a memory that she had access to. But apparently I was wrong. Basically like a movie, and the same movie with different voiceovers. That's interesting. That's interesting. Agreed. Meridian is the weakest of the season easily, though Combs' first appearance can't be all that bad. Fair. Combs is worthy. Okay, I do remember the episode where we first see Wei-Yoon. I do remember that there is an episode where we first see Wei-Yoon and he doesn't make it to the end of the episode. But I don't remember what the episode was at all, just by the name Meridian. That's not ringing any bells. Hey, Nadia, where Dax fell in love with the boring guy. Oh, that one! Yes. When Dax fell in love with the boring guy on that phasing planet and was going to stay there forever. Yes, that was also on my low list, but I had to pick 3. Meridian was also on my low list for similar reasons to this, similar to the like, I'm in love in 2 seconds and going to change my whole life because I just decided to right now. So Dax meets this boring guy on a planet, on a phasing planet. And then she's like, I'm madly in love. I'm going to stay with you. We're going to work out a way to like save my pattern in the buffer for the 60 years it's going to take before this planet phases in again, that I'm going to be a part of the community. And it should be in a more stable way, like for a longer time before it keeps phasing out. And she was like, so I'm going on a leave of absence from Starfleet for like 60 years. I'll be back eventually though. And then unfortunately that doesn't work out, which maybe is for the best. Yeah. Yes, we are. That was a good guess. Are y'all talking about the episode where Jezia's host spirits go into her friends and somehow Curzon is in love with her? That is exactly what we were talking about. That was a really good guess. Meant director's Q&As and not a voiceover. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Oh, that's so funny. The boring guy sure did dignitize her. She was in love. And at first I was like, why is she falling in love so quickly? But now that I have seen several seasons of Deep Space Nine, that's kind of the order of the day. They all fall in love extremely quickly. So no hate to Jadzia. At first I was like, is this a Jadzia thing? Because every time I turn around, she's in love. But no, it's not a Jadzia thing. It's everybody. It's Bashir. It's Cisco. It's everybody. They meet somebody and they're just like, wow, you're so beautiful. And they're in love. And that's all we need. And it's actually usually fine because if it's not a good match, it won't last to the end of the episode. And if it is a good match, then we'll get some great where are they nows in future episodes. So that is that. I figured it out. It's more entertaining to the audience to have the past lives to take on hosts. And it's cheaper for the producers than a flashback episode with all new characters. I agree with you. We definitely do not want nor need flashback episodes of Jedzia's past hosts. That's totally unnecessary. I don't know what any of these people look. I don't know what Tobin looks like. I'll need to know what Tobin looks like. She does such a great job of describing their personalities and their characteristics and, you know, how they felt about things. And I feel like I know them from that. I definitely do not need flashbacks with random people I don't know and would not recognize living different things. Now, that being said, I don't know if that ever, actually, no, that can't happen because we don't get Jedzia all the way to the end of the show. But yeah, we don't need that. We don't need the flashbacks. So yes, if this is our option between flashbacks and taking over your friends, that was a good call. The guy Dex was going for on Meridian was creepy. I did not like his game. It was predatory-ish. You think so? I didn't think so. I didn't think he was creepy. I didn't think he was like a Loaxana. I didn't think he was aggressive. He was just like, how far down do your spots go? Can I see him? And she was like, okay. They both seemed like they were on the same level of like into each other to me. It's not love, it's lust. That's fair. So they fall into lust very easily, like extremely easily. So it's not a Jedzia thing. It's all of them. It's absolutely all of them. They all do this. Puke. They all do this. Okay, so moving on to the high notes now. One of my favorite episodes, I think you guys will agree, because I actually have seen these next 2 episodes I saw before when I was guesting on a podcast where we were talking about some of the best episodes of Trek. So hopefully you guys enjoy this next one as much as I enjoyed it.
Season 3, Episode 20, Improbable Cause. When Garrick's shop is bombed, Odo investigates the vicious attack. He uncovers a wider conspiracy involving the Obsidian Order. This trail leads them to a secret Romulan-Cardassian alliance preparing a preemptive strike against the founders of the Dominion.
This episode was great. This episode was so good. I was so into it. Mind you, when I watched this episode, it was probably a year ago. maybe a year and a half ago when I saw this episode, totally out of context, hadn't seen really any other Deep Space Nine episodes. So I didn't know what all was going on. I didn't know these characters, but I was so engaged in this episode. I was so into it. From beginning to end, when Garrick's shop gets bombed, I was like, oh my gosh, what happened? Who did this? And as Odo's going around, he's trying to, piece together all the clues and figure out who's behind it. And then he's like, it was you. You bombed your own shop. I was like, what? He bombed his own shop. And it was like, you knew all along that your buddies were being eliminated one by one. And you wanted to get me on the case to save you from this poisoner who just happened to come on station. Like, you saw him out of the corner of your eyes and you planned this whole bombing before he could get to you so that he could be arrested. So like all these things. And this is just so Garrick, right? Garrick is just like an onion, so many layers, and maybe the middle layer is rotten. I don't know, but you just never know what you're going to get with him. He's such a mixed bag, and he has this kind of charming veneer, sort of charming, right? Like, he says things in a nice way, but he said most of the time, but he's like really mean about it. At the same time, like, he'll say mean things in a nice way. Sometimes he says mean things in a mean way. And you just cannot trust this man further than you can throw him. So I love this episode because Odo's like, all right, fine. Let's look into this. Let's investigate. Let's figure out what's going on. And then all of a sudden, this fleet decloaks and they go through the wormhole. And it's like, what the heck is going on? And Odo and Garrick are like going to figure it out. And then you come to find out that Inoperante is leading the charge against the Dominion. And you're like, what the heck? And then you come to find out that Garrick is like Inoperante's best mentee. That's what we know by this episode. That's his best mentee or whatever. And immediately, Tane is like, okay, Garrick, turn on Odo to prove that you're really loyal to me. And you're like, oh my gosh. And Garrick's like, okay. Because he's like, I'll bring you back into the fold. You can be part of us again. He's like, okay, sounds good. We'll do. And I mean, there's just so many things going on in this one episode. It's almost like 2 or 3 episodes stacked together. But I remember getting to the end of it and being like, oh my gosh. So of course, the next episode on my list is the Dias cast, because it's the next part of this story. But I made them as 2 separate episodes because they really feel complete. Even though the story continues, this episode feels meaty. It doesn't feel like your typical part 1, which is another surprising and exquisite thing that DS9 does. Like, it's something DS9 does super well, is when it does multi-part episodes, part 1 doesn't feel totally incomplete until you get part 2. And then sometimes part 3 and 4 and 5. It doesn't feel like, oh, this episode's not even done. It feels like this is a complete story. Oh, and we're still telling this story, which you don't really get in TNG. Part 1 is usually the setup, and then part 2 is the payoff. And part 1 can't exist without part 2, and vice versa. Actually, part 2 could probably exist on its own if you just made part 1 the first 5 or 10 minutes of part 2, but that's neither here nor there. DS9, it's like the stories are totally standalone. Like, someone's trying to murder Garrick is a totally different story from someone's trying to destroy the Dominion homeworld, or like the Founders homeworld, right? Those are 2 different storylines. So good. I'm going to check the chat, and then I want to talk about the Dias cast because that one also blew my freaking mind. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. One of the best. I love this 2-parter. It's so good. Excellent choice. Chock full of political intrigue, which I love. And like, I don't know, it's something Garrick does so well, that political intrigue, where you're like, I just don't trust him. I don't trust him. Like, he may even be telling the truth at some point. Who would know? Even he wouldn't know. Yes. No notes on this choice. Period. Yes. Yes. Garrick is an onion. There's so many layers. And are any of his layers good? Maybe. Right? Every time he does something good. Every time he does something not evil, or maybe even helpful, it almost feels like there's strings attached to everything. Like, it's a favor he's going to call in, or it really gets him something in that you just can never trust, even if he does something above board. He's kind of like a much more interesting version of Quark, because Quark is kind of all obsessed with Quark, right? He's not too concerned with other people, but every once in a while you'll see him being this, like, I've called it before, a lovable scamp with a heart of gold, right? You'll just see him just do something nice for a change. Like, he'll do something really nice for Nog, or he'll do something nice for Rom. Every once in a while, he'll do something nice for Odo or something. But it's really like, in his words, he says, oh, I think I'm starting to get a conscience. Starfleet is rubbing off on me, right? So it's more like it's like wearing down the rough edges of Quark. That is not Garrick. Nothing's rubbing that down. Nothing's rubbing down the edges. Everything he's doing is very calculated and meticulous, good or bad or seemingly neutral. What a great character. Great look at just how much of a gray area Garrick is. Yes, exactly. I said it first. Is this the one where Garrick melts Odo? The next one is the one where Garrick melts Odo. Garrick is awesome. Garrick is a good, I was going to say bad guy. Garrick's a good bad guy, but that's not what I mean. Garrick's a good character, I should say. Because when I say a good bad guy, I mean like Kai Wynn is a good bad guy. Dukat is a good bad guy. Garrick is just a super interesting character. I think Garrick is more like garlic. He can stink, but he adds flavor, pun intended. I think he would agree with you. Garrick is a walking, talking textbook on the importance of subtext and reading between the lines of a character 1000%. I couldn't have said it better. That's perfectly put. Garrick didn't really know how much he had changed when he was interrogating Odo. Yeah, that was so hard to watch. Garrick is from the South. He says things that are the equivalent to, well, bless your heart, and you're just so pretty, with a complete smile on his face. I agree. Like when he gives you a compliment, you better believe it's a backhanded compliment. Yeah, it's not a real compliment. It's not. He just doesn't give real compliments. Yeah, Garrick used to be the guy that could torture his mother. Then he had a flaccid reaction to Odo. Facts. George Costanza says, the more you peel an onion, the more it stinks. Okay, fair. We should remember Sharice's words about Garrick when it's time to discuss the pale moonlight. I think that's the title. It's a fake. The pale moonlight. Yeah, we will. I'm pretty sure we will discuss that. I'm pretty sure it's on my list. Okay, so now let's talk about the Die is Cast.
Season 3, Episode 21, The Die is Cast. The joint Romulan-Cardassian fleet launches its attack on the Founders' homeworld only to discover it's a trap. The planet is abandoned, and the Dominion retaliates. In the meantime, Garrick is forced to torture Odo as a sign of his loyalty to his mentor, Inabran Tain. Which, by the way, doesn't matter, because in the end, the Jem'Hadar annihilate the fleet, just as the Defiant narrowly rescues Garrick and Odo.
This episode was so good. Like, oh my goodness. When they go to bomb the planet, this is like the benefit of just watching all these for the first time, right? When they go to bomb the planet, I remember just being like, oh my gosh, like, are they really destroying all the Founders? Are they really blowing up an entire planet? Like, who does that? Who does that? And then when Inabran Tain's like, how many life signs? And then the Romulan woman is like, the life signs haven't changed. Wait a minute, it's false readings. There's nobody even on this planet. And then they're like, what? And then all the Jem'Hadar decloak and just start firing. I was like, woo, you got played. I did not see that coming. I was totally surprised. I did not see that coming. I also didn't see coming the fact that Garrick was going to go through with torturing Odo. I thought he was going to charm his way out of that situation. I thought he was going to be able to be like, oh, he doesn't really know anything or something. He was like, bring in the equipment, turn it on. And the only places where you see he has some kind of heart is that as Odo is just suffering, he keeps being like, tell me the truth so that this can stop. And that is, you can tell that's part of his interrogation techniques. And he really does want to stop torturing Odo. He doesn't want to stop enough to actually stop because it's Garrick, but he does want to stop. Whereas it sounds like from what he said in this episode to Odo and himself and other characters, it sounds like old Garrick, like kicked out of the Obsidian Order and all Cardassia Garrick, would have enjoyed the interrogation regardless of who it was. He would have just loved every minute of it. Somebody said in the chat earlier he would interrogate his own mom. Like, yeah, he just like loved causing pain and suffering. But here, when he's seeing Odo suffering, it does bother him. Like I said, it doesn't bother him enough to stop the suffering, but it does bother him enough to try to get Odo to confess. Like, just confess. So that way I can go and tell Tain that you've said everything. You've told me everything. Which Tain expected him to kill Odo anyways, because he was like, go get answers. And he was like, there are no answers. Well, then use a torture device. So he used a device. And it was like, and then when he came back, he was like, he's told us everything he knows. He's like, are you sure? Maybe put him out of airlock. You know what I mean? Like, in the end, Tain was going to kill him anyways. He was not going to keep him alive. It was only because of that other changeling in disguise that we didn't know was a changeling who was like, oh, we should keep him. Actually, no, this was Garrick's idea, who was like, maybe we should keep him for study so that we can find out more about the Founders or something like that. But Tain was never going to let Odo live. Like, that was not going to be a thing. And I think it's so cruel and it's so Tain to have Garrick be the one that interrogates Odo. You know what I mean? Like, there was no information he could get from him. He didn't know that. But once he did know that, he still wanted him to suffer. And once he knew there was nothing left and he had suffered, he was going to get rid of him anyways. But he wanted Garrick to be the one to do it. And it's just, Tane's the worst. And you see like where Garrick has learned it all, except for Tane, while he does it with a smile, you can tell he's a bad guy. Like he's willing to start a complete quadrant-wide war because he's bored from retirement. He's bored and he wants something to do. So his something to do is to cause a big war. So now he's busy again. That is crazy. What happened to taking up golf like a normal person? Starting a war? Who does that? So we see that Tane is just like out of his mind. Garrick is more subtle, right? He's more sneaky. He's more with subtext and subterfuge. Tane is just like off with his head because he's used to being the head of the Obsidian Order and he doesn't need to be sneaky. That scene in this episode at the end where everything's falling apart and it's like zooming in really close to everybody's face and they all have these weird expressions and Tane is sitting in the front and he's like, I can't believe we lost or whatever he's, I don't even remember what he's saying to himself, but he's like talking to himself and Garrick's like, we have to go. We have to leave. We have to get out of here. Come on, wake up, wake up. And he's just like, that scene was, oh my gosh, that scene was so good. I was like, what's going to happen? I actually didn't know that Garrick was going to survive this episode because before I watched this episode, mind you, when I watched it a year ago, I had no context. I had not seen any other DS9s, but I had seen all of Lower Decks. And they bring back like a Garrick character in Lower Decks in the last season. So everybody was like, oh, finally we get to see Garrick. The way people were talking, it made me think that Garrick died. The way people were talking about that character. So I thought, oh no, this is the episode where he dies. Mind you, I hadn't seen Garrick before. So I was like I'm just barely getting to know this character and he's going to die, but he didn't die, but I thought he was going to. So in this scene where the bridge is shaking and everything's on fire and Tane won't leave, I was like, oh, here it happens. It's going to explode or something. And then Odo comes and punches him in the face and puts him over his shoulder and drags him out into a ship. And I was like, oh, he survives. Oh my gosh. Like what a relief. Such a great episode. And then when the Defiant comes in, guns blazing and manages to snatch them up and save the day while this battle is just raging, you just see ships just like exploding all over the place. Great. It was just a great episode. Just great all around. Okay, I'm going to check the chat and then we'll go to the next episode on the list that I loved from this season. The planet is deserted, sir. Oh my gosh. These changelings are very good. Next time we'll have to... Oh, that's what he was saying. Yes, he was sitting there going, these changelings are very good. Next time we'll have to be more careful. And oh my gosh. And Garrick's like, come on, get up. We need to get out of here. This place is going to explode. And he's just like, just staring. Oh my gosh. Like it was a scary moment. It was just a scary. I don't know. It was a scary moment in the sense that if I was in this situation as Odo, maybe, I don't know if I'd be waiting for Garrick because he was like, I'll wait for you at the shuttle. I don't know if I'd be waiting, but Odo didn't wait. He came and punched him in the face and dragged him away. He saved his life. And then after this, the two of them became friends, which I really love because in this episode, we see that Odo and Garrick are like two sides of a coin. Odo doesn't have subtext. He doesn't have intrigue. He doesn't do all these layers, but they both have this desire to be back with their people and neither one of them can for whatever reasons. And they both understand how strong that desire is and how they're almost willing to do anything to get back. And so they have this point of commonality, which I really appreciate seeing in the two of them. Please give Odo some skin lotion. It was painful for me to watch what Garrick was doing to Odo. It was like seeing a train wreck in progress. Horrific as it is, you can't bring yourself to turn away. It was pretty awful. Leland Orser plays the changeling Robulin Labak. Such a muted role compared to being abductor in ENT's Carpenter Street and the murderous hologram in Voyager's Revulsion. He was a really, really good in Revulsion, but I actually really liked him. I really liked him as Lobak in this episode because I didn't peg him for a changeling. He totally surprised me. I did not see that coming until he was like, what is the thing the changelings always say? Not one of us has harmed another. Whatever that phrase is they always say. And in all of our time, none of us have harmed another. Whatever he said, that was like the little, I'm a changeling too. I was like, what the heck? And then as soon as I saw that, I was like, wow, see, this is why the changelings are pretty much unbeatable. This right here, because they can infiltrate all levels of government and no one would know. I mean, not Odo, because he can't look like the people very effectively, but this guy looks exactly like a Romulan. He doesn't have any kind of misshapen parts that would make you think twice about whether or not he really is who he claims to be. So it was just, yeah, that scene was like, okay, changelings have won. They have outsmarted everybody. And I think in that scene where he's talking to Odo, I think he even says something of like, this was our idea or something, like this whole raid was the changelings idea, the founders idea. So that way they can drag out their biggest threat and destroy them all in one blow. So talk about devious, man, like Tane got played. He got played. Garrick is one of the best DS9 characters. He has no issues showing people that Starfleet's moral compass is not the end all be all to the galaxy, and that it thinks it is. That is true. And he also he's kind of like the opposite in Odo in the way that Odo's like, I want to be more like you, you know, I want to be where the people are. That's Odo, right? Garrick is like, F these people. He's like, I'm here because I have to be here because there's nowhere else I can go. I can't go back to Cardassia. I can't go to Bajor. This is the only place that I belong where people will come and buy dresses from me. So this is the only life I can have. I don't like it. I don't prefer it, but I'm here and I'm going to make the best of it. But I'm not always going to be happy about it. And I appreciate that. He's not trying to mix in with people. He's not trying to be something he's not, although he always says he's a tailor and when he's obviously more than that. But that's still part of being Garrick. That's part of that like duplicitous nature or that having multiple layers. Simple tailor. He tortured Odo enough to prove he was doing the task, but he kept him alive to flesh out the founder on the ship. I truly think he knew that Odo could take it. I don't know if he knew that Odo could take it, but he did turn the machine off. He did know that Odo was holding back. And when Odo confessed that he really wanted to go be with his people, then he turned the machine off because he knew that was the last bit that was there. So even Odo, as a changeling, was not clever enough with his feelings or thoughts to hide it from Garrick, who is an experienced interrogator, which is pretty impressive. Yeah, Garrick is a survivor. Totally. He's not going down with the ship. The reason people were talking about seeing him in Lower Decks was in regards to the status with Bashir. Yes, which I now know, but I didn't know it at the time. So I thought everybody was talking about it because somehow the character dies and everybody was like so happy to see him back alive. That was just my assumption. So this whole episode, I was like, actually the episode before, I was like, oh no, they're not going to make it. And then they made it. And then this scene, and I was like, oh no, he's not going to make it. And then he made it. And then I was like, wait, he's still alive. And as I continue to watch the show, he's still alive. So then I was like, oh, it must just be the Bashir thing that people, because mind you, at this point, oh no, it was this not this episode, the last one where he and Bashir were having breakfast together. So like that their little bromance had already started. But yeah, I didn't know that's what people were talking about. This is the episode where I suspected that Garrick may be more than just a tailor. This was the episode. Maybe Garrick is more than a simple tailor. No changeling has ever harmed another. Thank you. That's what it was. No changeling has ever harmed another until one does, of course. Garrick and Odo's alignment are similar. Odo is lawful neutral and Garrick would be neutral evil. That is a perfectly accurate way to describe it. But Garrick is a good tailor. He is a good tailor. And I like the part where Odo's like, so you blew up your own shop. It must have been really cathartic or something like that. And Garrick's just like, yeah, it was nice. I'm not going to lie. Because he hates his life on Deep Space Nine. So blowing up that shop was kind of this like symbolic thing of like, I hate this life and I'm going to blow it up, you know, and it made him feel really probably like empowered and just free of this little prison he's been in. But then when he gets back and the shop's like all crumbly and dusty and he's just like looking around, Odo says something to him and he's like, well, you know, the sad thing is I really was a good tailor. And Odo's like, well, you can rebuild. Like, you're still welcome here, basically. And then Odo invites him to dinner or lunch or breakfast or something like that. We're like, we should go grab a drink together. And Garrick's like, I thought you didn't eat. And he was like, I don't. And Garrick's like, okay. Like, that was their little like, all right, let's be friends. You tried to kill me. If I was in your position, I would have tried to kill you. Let's just bury the hatchet and be friends. I kind of love that ending. It was very... not bittersweet, but it was like a good, soft, and kind of positive ending to such an intense 2 episodes that were like not soft and positive. Nice Little Mermaid snippet. Now I want to see the one-woman stage show where you do all the characters of the play of Little Mermaid or of the Dias cast, because I think both would be pretty fun. Ape, not kill ape. That's not what they said. Okay, so here is the third episode on my list of episodes I really enjoyed in season 3. And then I do have an honorable mention because like I just had to put this other episode on the list.
Season 3, Episode 14, Heart of Stone. While chasing a Maquis operative, Kira becomes trapped in a growing crystal formation that threatens to consume her completely. Odo attempts to free her, but everything he does only makes things worse. At the same time, Nog has decided to become the first Ferengi to join Starfleet, which is met with very mixed reactions. The only one who really supports him in this dream is his dad.
I love this episode. So this is episode 14. And then the other 2 episodes were like, I don't know, like 20 and 21, I think. So this one I actually saw before the other ones, like in chronological order. But this episode I love so much. I love these 2 halves. I love these 2 stories so much. I love Odo trying to do whatever he can for Kira, and just like the kindness and tenderness he shows, especially since we usually just see him being really grumpy. And especially since we already know he's into Kira, because we've known that since I think the 2nd episode of the show, maybe the 1st one. And finally, he not only do we see him being nice, which is really sweet, but he finally confesses his love for Kira, which I've been like wanting him to do. Not that I felt like Kira was going to reciprocate it at all, but just because it caused him so much pain to keep this inside. And so he finally does, you know, he tells her all of his feelings, and then she's like, Odo, I love you too. And then he's like, what? You're not Kira, because she would never say that. And I actually kind of like that too, that he knows her well enough to know her, to know how she feels about him, to know what she would say and do. And then turns out to be Lady Changeling. This mofo is just sitting up here doing some level 10 emotional manipulation on Odo, because that is what they do. And she was like, well, I just figured if you thought that she died, you would come and join the Great Link with us. So like, leave her. And Odo's so mad. And he's like, take me to Kira. And Kira's fine. And he takes her and goes back to the ship, and all is well. And she's just like, eventually you'll come back to us. So I guess like no harm, no foul. And then I guess he never really did share his feelings. But I still love that. I love seeing Odo be tender and caring. I also really love the backstory that he gives about his name, about how it means unknown sample. And it was supposed to be some kind of joke. And he was just a thing. He wasn't even a sentient being worthy of love, respect, or any kind of rights when he was being studied on Bajor. And now he said something to the effect of, when people say it now, it means so much more. Like when his friends say Odo, it means who he has become. I just love that. It's kind of like a rose by any other name would still smell as sweet situation, where even though his original name was unknown sample, just something, Odo now means something. It means everything he is as a person and how people feel about him. And it's not said with disgust unless Quark is saying it. It's said with like love and respect. And I really enjoyed that. And it was really sad too, when he was telling the story and he was just like, oh, funny story. And then after he tells the story and you're like, that's a heartbreaking story, he goes, well, I guess it wasn't that funny. Like, it wasn't funny at all. That story was not funny, but it was a good story. And I'm glad he told it. So that's one reason why I love this episode. Second reason why I love this episode is Nog wants to be the first Ferengi in Starfleet. That just melted my heart. Like, I've already said, I love the character of Nog. I just love this little kid. Every time he smiles, it makes my heart smile. Just that little, like, that little cute little smile. It makes me so happy. So when he first goes in to see Cisco and he brings a whole sack of latinum and he's like, I'm ready to start my apprenticeship and I want you to help me get into Starfleet. And Cisco's like, that's not how it works. And also you must be joking. And he's like, no, this is what I want. And the way he keeps like reaching his little hand out so he can shake Cisco's hand, it just was so cute. Like, all of it just melted my heart, all of it. And then to see Jake being like, of course you're joking, and Quark being like, of course you're joking, and Cisco being like, of course you're joking. Everybody's not taking him seriously because it seems so ridiculous. And then that heart to heart that he has at the end, when Cisco is like, I am not going to write a letter for you. You're not coming into Starfleet so you can have some kind of, profit hungry Ferengi, whatever. And then he does this whole thing where he's like, I see my dad and I see what he goes through, and I'm not going to live that life. My dad is a genius. He's amazing. He could fix anything. If he was in Starfleet, he would be a chief engineer by now. But instead, because he's a Ferengi who's not good at business, he has to work for my uncle, like fixing his stuff and being a waiter. And my uncle treats him like dirt because he's not a good Ferengi. He's not good at profit. He's not good at business. And this is going to be his lot in life for the rest of his life. And I refuse to go down that route. honestly, it had me in all my feels, where he's just like, he's confessing his worst fear is becoming his father, is becoming like a laughingstock or a joke. And he also confessed, he's like, I don't have the lobes for it either. I'm not good at business. I'm not good at it. This is not my thing either. And I can see where that road is going to head. And I'm not going to be working for my uncle, tending bar. I'm not going to be doing that. So he's like, I want something more for myself, and I want to join Starfleet, and I want to do something that I can bring. And at the same time that he's feeling like, I don't want to be like my dad, he also has this just beautiful confidence that I don't know where it comes from, but he also has this confidence where he's like, I won't let you down. I will be amazing in Starfleet. I'm going to do such a good job. Like, I can work really hard. Like, I know I can do something amazing. And I love that. And then when he does do the work, he does amazing. He does a really great job, and he impresses everybody. And Dax even has to be like, you know what? He's doing awesome. He's really coming through. It doesn't seem like it's a joke anymore. It seems like he's serious. And then at the end, when Sisko hears his whole reasons for why he wants to be in Starfleet, he's like, all right, fine. I will write the letter for you. And then he's like, and puts his little hand out for a handshake. And it just was like, it just melted my heart. There's just a lot of tears in this episode. I loved it. I loved everything about it. I'm a fan of this one. Okay, I'm going to check the chat, and then I want to share my honorable mention, which also was so great. Another good episode. Okay, let's see. Do Sebastian next. Now when someone claims to be a simple tailor, how can you tell? Exactly. I loved Nog's speech in this one. I did too. Life is better with Wesley's sweater. Take it from me. If you guys write the lyrics, I'll sing the song. So I just said that out loud. This is a good episode. Not a fan of this episode except for the Nog arc. So I'm guessing you don't love the Odo, Kira, will they, won't they thing that goes on for a very, very long time. And if you don't love that, I am not mad at you, because there are a lot. I feel like Deep Space Nine is like a soap opera in space. Is it just me? Or does it feel like soap opera? Because everybody loves everybody. Everybody's hooking up with everybody. Everybody's having everybody's babies. Like, it feels, they've got evil twins in the mirror universe. It just feels very dramatic. So if there are any couplings that you're not a fan of, I don't totally get it. Because there's a lot of couples to not be a fan of. There's just a lot of couples in this particular show. I think the Nog Sisko parts were better than the Kira Odo parts. I 1000% agree with you. And I would say the Nog storyline was better overall, because really Kira and Odo was Kira and Odo in a cave, and Kira slowly being swallowed while they talk about their feelings. So if that is not enough to have a full episode. That is not a meaty enough A plot or B plot to really, I guess it could be a good B plot. Could be a good B plot. And maybe it is the B plot for this episode, but it's not meaty enough on its own. There's not enough things going on other than the cave is shaking. There's earthquakes. Rocks are going to fall on us. There's not enough meat on the bone, but the Nog storyline could be a full episode. Like, it could have had way more traction, or way more space in this episode than it did. Because I think there's more directions to go in. We can investigate the whole Jake Nog thing. We can investigate more stuff between Rom and Quark that Nog's overseeing, or maybe Nog has some run-ins with Quark. And there is an episode, whenever Nog is trying to take his entrance exam, which I think is also this season, and then Quark totally torpedoes it because he's a jerk and he doesn't want his family in Starfleet or whatever. And then Rom finds out and he pins him against the bulkhead and he's like, you better not mess with my son again. Da-da-da-da-da. I was like, okay, Rom, okay. I'm starting to like this guy, So I think there's more room for interesting conversations with the Nog arc. But I like both of them. I did. I agree with the above statements, but the Odo part was necessary because it shaped his character for the rest of the show. I liked hearing Odo's backstory and hearing him be like a nice person. I don't know, just to be like a normal person. I don't know how to say it, but I liked hearing his inner world. I'll put it that way. I appreciated that. Kira's boyfriend had just died in the previous episode, and now she's in love with Odo. Right. No wonder he called the bluff. Did he die in the previous episode? Was that episode 13 that he died in? Because if so, the timing is awful. Yeah, I agree with you. The timing is awful. Who's Salome? Is that the lady changeling? Is that her name? The benefits of a serialized show. Yep. Oh, Nog is your favorite too? I love Nog. Yeah, Nog is just the best. I love Nog from like literally the first episode when he's hanging out with Jake. I was like, who is this little kid? And this little smile is just everything. And literally, as each season has gone by, and I told you guys in season 1, I was like, maybe this will change, and I'll fall in love with a different character. It has not changed. Like every time I see Nog, even if he's sad, like whatever he's going through, I'm like, it's Nog. Like he's easily my favorite character. And he has so much growth and development. Like they do so much with this character's internal life, and just, yeah, such a fan. Think about it. Nog and Quark and Rom pretty much got to develop what we perceive as the Ferengi culture. Yes, and we are glad they did, because the Ferengi in TNG were ridiculous. They were a joke. They were comic relief. They were pretty dumb. And every time they brought the Ferengi back in TNG, I was like, why? Why did you do this again? It didn't work the last 3 times. Why are we doing this again? But I'm glad they stuck with it, because the Ferengi in Deep Space Nine feel so complete. They feel like a full-on culture with religion and hierarchy, government hierarchy, and customs between male and female, and laws that they live by, and just like so much nuance. And I really appreciate that. And they still keep the whole, like, we're all about money. But they show a lot of layers in that too, because we see that Rom is not all about money because he's not good at business. We see Nog is not all about money because he's also not good at business. You know, we get to see all these layers. So I'm actually really glad that they stuck with Ferengi in Deep Space Nine, because they made them like 1,000 times better than they could have ever been in TNG. So thanks for that. If you guys like Aaron Eisenberg as Nog, watch or play Star Trek Online. He did a phenomenal performance as Captain Nog, which I'm guessing you mean like a voiceover, maybe like a cutscene or something. That is super interesting. Yeah, a space opera. Yes, with less singing. Although, one of the things I'm surprised by is all the darn singing. We get so many Klingon ballads in this show that we did not get in TNG. I think we had that one cantina scene where Picard had been kidnapped or something, and we get somebody singing some Klingon ballads like one time, but and we get them singing in the Kittimer episode when Worf goes to that prison camp. But I feel like Deep Space Nine is we're always doing some Klingon songs. Klingon song at the restaurant, Klingon song on the ship. It's a lot of Klingon songs. Okay. Salome Jens is a female changeling. So is that the actress's name or the changeling's name? Because in the show, the changeling doesn't have a name. Oh, she did play the alien in The Chase. She totally did. She totally did. She looked vaguely familiar, but I would have never, ever placed that. I just thought she looked vaguely familiar because her face was kind of smeared. And maybe her smeared face looked like a different face. But the face in The Chase was very similar to this. Like, also kind of neutral. Super interesting. Okay. The Ferengi, and the reason why I asked the name, because Odo had asked her, what's your name? And she was like, I don't have a name. Or like, we are one are we, whatever she said. And so she said she didn't have a name. The Ferengi in TNG seasons 1, 2, 3 are Gene Roddenberry's idea of the villain race. Yeah, the worst villains ever. They are so unbelievable as villains. It was not worth the trouble. Nog was the lead in hours and hours of Star Trek Online. Oh, get out of town. Who knew? Worf always be rocking out to his Klingon operas. Imagine what 21st century speakers are like. Blown out. Okay, so those are my 3 lowest ones. Those are my 3 tops. And now I do have one honorable mention that I had to talk about.
Season 3, Episode 24, Shakaar. Kai Wynn, acting as Bajor's first minister, asks Kira to convince her former resistance leader Shakaar to return some government equipment, but he refuses. When Kai Wynn tries to have Shakaar arrested, it triggers a standoff between former resistance fighters and the current Bajoran government. Soldiers on both sides realize that they didn't fight the occupation together just to end up fighting against each other. So instead, they form an alliance and force Kai Wynn out of the First Minister's seat to be replaced by Shakaar.
That look right there, when they told her that she needs to get packing and get out, I literally applauded out loud while I was watching it. Like, I am so for real. So, okay, this episode, and the episode's kind of like, the episode's fine. Like, it's not a bad episode. But really, it's the ending that made me just fall in love with the episode. So basically, like, and it's so stupid too. Shakaar and the resistance members have like some, I think it's farming equipment, some kind of like big generators or whatever. And Kai Wynn, who is now the first minister, for some reason. I forget why she's first minister or what happened to the other first minister, but whatever, she's first minister. And she's like, we need those pieces of equipment to help with the farms somewhere else, either on Bajor or on another moon or something like that. But she was like, those 3 generators you guys have, we want them. And then when Kira goes to talk to Shakaar, he's like, no, and I may be getting these details wrong, but I think he was like, we've been on a wait list for like 18 months for these, and we just got them 3 months ago, but we were promised that we could have it for like a year or 6 months or whatever it was. They were promised a certain amount of time. And so he was like, yes, soil reclamators. Okay, well done. Yes. So he was like, we were promised we could have them for X amount of time. We've only had them for a little amount of time. And we're going to keep them. We're going to keep them until that contract is over, and then we will give them back. But Kai Wynn is like, no, we need them now. We need them before the growing season is over. And we need to till the soil and blah, blah, blah. And growing season is going to happen and blah, 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 whatever. She's like, we need them. It doesn't matter that you want them. And so now Kira's in this awkward position of trying to pressure them into giving the government back these supplies. And Shakaar's just like, no, it's not right. So no. And Kira's like, yeah, it's fair. Like, that's fair. Like, that's not right. So Kira is trying to negotiate, right? She's trying to be like, okay, when can we maybe you could have one, or maybe you could just wait till they're done with it. And maybe we do miss a planting season, but they're going to give it back when the contract's over. And then you'll have all 3, so Kira is trying to navigate. Kai Wynn wants none of that. She does not want navigating. She wants what she wants, when she wants it, how she wants it. So she sends the government after them. But Shakaar et al. Were all resistance fighters. So they know how to evade a government. So when they come, Kira happens to be there when the officer comes and is like, you're under arrest, Shakaar, or whatever. And she's like, wait, what? I was trying to negotiate. What's going on? And it's like, oh, no, First Minister said we just need to take them. So then Kira starts fighting. And then Shakaar's like, okay, you can still leave. You don't have to get caught up in what's going on with us. You can still go back to Deep Space Nine, or, go back to Bajor and just tell them in the heat of the moment, your instincts kicked in, but you didn't really mean to support us rebels. And she was like, psh, you clearly don't know me at all. Let me put on my tank top and pull out my phaser rifle. She's like, I'm with you, which I kind of like about Kira in Deep Space Nine is like every time you turn around, she's suddenly on a leave because she's joined the resistance fighters somewhere. She's just like, yeah, they'll be fine without me. So I don't know who Kira's second in command is, but I know they stay employed, right? Like they always have something to do. Because at the drop of a hat, Kira's like, I'm going to be gone for 6 months because this resistance, they need some help. So anyways, she goes and she helps them. And then they end up fighting like the guy who they send, because they keep sending people. And these people can't catch the resistance fighters. So then they send these people who were resistance fighters and they now are in the government. They send them. So now it's like resistance versus resistance. And they have them pinned in a valley. And Shakaar and Kira both have like the guy in their sights, like the head guy or whatever. And they're like, oh, that's so-and-so. And I remember that battle he did in such and such place. And like, he's such a hero. And I've always wanted to meet him. And they realize like they're the same person, and they're like, I can't do this. And I don't remember which one of them says it first, if it was Kira or if it was Shakaar, but one of them is just like, I can't fire. I can't do this. And the other one was like, I can't either. Like, we just can't do this. So they just come down and they talk it all out, which I really actually enjoyed. I liked all the intrigue and how it wasn't just a bloodbath, but how it was just a meeting of the minds. And they were both just like, yeah, this is kind of dumb. This whole fight is dumb. And Kira's like, it's not even about this. It's not even about these 3 soil reclamators. It's the principle of the matter. Are we going to let Kai Wynn destroy the peace that we have fought so hard to get? Are we going to let her plunge us into civil war over 3 pieces of farm equipment? And they were all just like, yeah, that is dumb. Maybe she's not a very good leader. Like maybe this is not the role for her. So when they walk into the office, and it was in that little video I just showed, Kai Wynn has this big smile on her face because she thinks they've arrested Shakaar and they're coming to like bring the prize. And so she's just like, well done. You're going to get a bonus in your Christmas salary or whatever. And Kira's just like, no, he's not under arrest. And Kai Wynn is like, what do you mean he's not under arrest? And then they're just like, yeah, we decided that you suck at this job. So Shakaar is going to run for first minister, and Shakaar is going to win because all the resistance fighters and all of us, we're voting for Shakaar, and the entire military force of the government is also voting for Shakaar. So, and the look on Kai Wynn's face, she's so upset. And Kira's like, pack your bags. Your time in this office, your days in this office are numbered. I literally was like, whoa! Like I started cheering. I got up. I was like, yeah, let's go. Because I just felt like Kai Wynn she didn't have Bajor's best in mind. She just was power hungry. And I wanted to see her not get absolute power because she absolutely should not have had it. And Shakaar seemed like he would be a much more sound leader for this particular role. And Kira even said, you'll still be our spiritual leader. You get to be Kai, but you don't need to be Kai and First Minister. Like, why are you trying to suck up all the power in the entire planet, girl? Like, be satisfied. So anyways, this definitely deserved an honorable mention because, I mean, how many episodes of Star Trek do I literally cheer at? Not that many. So I had to share that one. I'm going to check the chat one more time. And then if I have time, I'll mention some other episodes that I really liked. But if not, we'll leave it there. And then be sure to subscribe because next week I'll be talking about the highs and lows of season 4. And season 4 is when Worf comes. So we get a little more wartime stuff in season 4. Gets a little more intense. Okay. Let's see. Where was I? Ooh, this is a good one. I'm glad you like it the way I like it. If you like conundrums and dilemmas, it's a Western set on Bajor. Basically, yes, it's a Western set on Bajor. Exactly. And his character is all downhill from here. Are you talking about Shakaar? This is the best Shakaar we'll ever get. You're not wrong. I think this is the only time we see Shakaar doing something really interesting because then he becomes an administrator. And then we just see him either hooking up with Kira or like going to a meeting. I think that's all we see about him from here. Government attacking its own people. That never happens in real life. I know. And it's just as heartbreaking on TV as it is in real life. And to see there be some kind of solution to that, because you can do stuff like that on TV. You can just magic the solution, was so satisfying. For them to just be like, yeah, Kai Wynn, you suck as a leader. So you're out. We're holding elections next week and you're going to lose. But you can stay in the election if you want to, but you're going to lose. Like that just was so, I was just happy. I was so happy for Kai Wynn to not stay as first minister. And the look on her face was just perfection. Like I went to sleep with a smile on my face after watching that episode. Yeah, I also like the focus on the Bajoran political structure and getting a little more nuances about Bajor, which are always interesting. Y'all know how I feel about Kai Wynn. I was glad to see her outed, but they could have done more. Like standard. Yeah, they could have done more. But if they did more, yeah, I totally love to hate Kai Wynn too. If they did more, then we wouldn't have Kai Wynn later to hate her even more. So we needed to keep Kai Wynn because I really enjoyed hating this character. I thought this character was really nuanced and layered and tricky. She smiled on the front, but she had like a knife behind her back, you know what I mean? So I thought this was a really well done character. And I will say in later seasons, because all of them are kind of blending for me, but in later seasons, they do soften her character a bit and they amp up Ducat's evilness. And I think that was a mistake. I think they should have left them both evil. They could amp up Ducat's evilness, but I think they should have left Kai Wynn as this like really duplicitous, tricky person instead of making her an ally with Sisko and like a mild annoyance sometimes with Sisko. I think they should have amped up her deviousness, especially after this defeat. They should have had something where she's like, oh, you want to kick me out of being the first minister? Let's see what I can do. Because I would have hated her even more. And it would have made her even more sticky and interesting character, right? Even more engaging. So yes, I'm glad that they didn't like fire squad her or something because she's such a good character. Like I just want more of her because every time you see her on screen, you're like, what's she up to now? If only there was a woman on Deep Space Nine who was good at growing things, right? Then maybe they could have figured that out. But she was busy teaching at a school that, got bombed, and so she couldn't teach at the school. This storyline was so believable. A bad politician makes dumb promises and then starts an internal conflict. Yeah, it wasn't the most space opera-y of space operas. It was very much like a copy and paste from the headlines, but it was done really well. Kira is an STO? Wait, is Kira a Kai? Or is it Kai Wynn? Does Kira become a Kai or something? That'd be wild. Kai Wynn actually had a point in this episode. The needs of the many and all that. Yes, she did have a point, and that was what she was standing on, is like, Bajor needs this. But her whole thing of like, we need these 3 reclamators specifically. No other ones. We're not going to ask Starfleet for help. We're not going to be resourceful. We're just going to take it from them because I want it. That's what made her a good bad guy. Because this wasn't, she was saying like, it's best for Bajor. But every time Kai Wynn says best for Bajor, it's really best for me. And even if she was totally right, like these were the only 3 reclamators, she had to have these 3, it had to be from this moon, all of that. She didn't send the government in for the best of Bajor. She did not send the government in to get Shakaar because her people would starve if they didn't have these soil reclamators or something like that. She sent them in because Shakaar disobeyed her. That's why she sent the government in. That's why she sent the military in. She said, you have to obey the government. You have to listen to us, because if you don't, then there's going to be chaos. And I think that's the difference, is that she could have been doing something for a good reason. Like, the motives could have been good, but in this case, the motives were not good. Like, she could have said this is to save, and she did say this is to save people. But in reality, the reason why she was fighting is because they disobeyed her personally, as opposed to this was really, truly a need of Bajor. And I think that's what makes Kai Wynn such a terrible person, is because she's always like, this is what's best for Bajor, aka me. So for some reason, she thinks she is Bajor. I don't know. Louise Fletcher was a great actress. I hated Kai Wynn, but not in a bad way. Yeah, I hated her too. Like, she's like, you love to hate her, you know, which is a sign of a well-written character. I started working on my data list. It's hard to pick out all the little data moments. I know. That's why I told you. It's hard to find them. But when you find them, let me know. I wish they had brought back mention of those refugees, the Skria expert farmers that Bajor rejected. Yeah, we don't. Oh, there's more. They could have mentioned the Skria and been like, maybe we wouldn't be in this mess today if we had let them stay. I was actually thinking about the Skria, the people who, like, they came and they were like, we're going to help. Bajor is our lost planet according to our religion, and we can help you guys because we're excellent farmers and we can help till the soil and blah, blah, blah. I kept thinking they were going to come back. Like, I kept actually being like, oh, in this scene, this makes sense. Or like, oh, they have a problem with XYZ. They're going to go back to the Skria, but they don't ever go back to those people, which normally they don't, because it's Star Trek and it's always one off. But for DS9, they do a lot of where are they now? So I kept waiting for that, Nadia. I kept waiting for them to be like, oh, the Skria, maybe they could help, or like maybe we could reform relations or trade technologies or something like that. But nope, they didn't. Kai Wynn is the poster child of the dark side of religious nationalism. Yes. You watched Lower Decks before you watched all of Deep Space Nine. Yes, I did watch Lower Decks before I'm just now watching all of Deep Space Nine. Yes, I did not watch them in order in which they came out in real life. I've been watching on my TV. That's why I just got in the chat. Oh yeah, that's the thing. Well, glad to have you here. And that is the only thing with watching on your TV, is that you can't be in the chat, but you could just talk out loud to me. Just be a part of the conversation. You know, if you like stuff or don't like stuff, you could always say it out loud. I can't hear you, but then you'll have the vibe of this conversation, you know? So proper. Kai Win, more like Kai Loser. That's funny. Except for she really did win. Like, she did become Kai. In her sneaky way, she became Kai over Bareil. I was so mad. And I think that's another reason why I was so happy when Shakaar kicked her out of office, because of how she stole that election from Bareil. Like, I'm still mad about it. But it worked out for the best for storyline wise. I think Kai Wynn and Gul Dukat would be friends. I don't think they would be friends. I don't think they would be friends, because there's like a scene from one of the episodes where Dukat is like, he says something like, we could be good friends. So he says something like that, like, we could be good friends. And she touches his ear to sense his paw. And she goes, no, we're nothing alike. Nothing at all alike. And she does that big sweet smile that she does. She has a very Umbridge smile. Like, if you're a Harry Potter fan, she has that smile that's just like, it's smiling, but there's like murder in her eyes. So I think they're both bad. They're both like bad guys in totally different ways, which I love watching. Charisse, have you seen season 7 yet? No, I have not seen season 7. I am in season 7 right now, but I'm not done with season 7. So I do not know how the show ends. So yes, no spoilers for season 7 on, but I have watched all the other stuff. Chiron turned into a murderer. She was plenty evil. Ooh, okay, well, that's a spoiler then, because I don't see her murder anybody yet. Yes, they would make strange bedfellows. Yep. I have not finished Deep Space Nine, so anything that happens at the end, I haven't seen it yet. I hope they try that idea in the last season. Yeah, no spoilers for that's why we're just talking about like season 3 today, but maybe by next week or the week after that, I'll be done with the whole show, so then we can have spoilers all around. No, you did not miss it. I didn't say. I am in mid-season of season 7. I think I'm on episode 14. So the exact halfway point of season 7. So I'm excited. Like, season 7's good. Now, I mean, season 5 was super good, and then season 6 was good, and season 7's good. So, like, yeah, okay. I can't wait to see Sharice react to the ending of season 7. You're not giving away spoilers here, are you? Are you talking to me? I am talking about things that happen in season 3 right now in this conversation. The next week I'll be talking about season 4. But there's been a big, great question, Rick. There's been a big effort of people to try to help me to like not spoil this show for me. I get it's been off air for like 30 years, but people want me to experience the show all by itself without having a ton of spoilers. And I already had a bunch of spoilers, but I don't know how the show ends. I mean, I know a little bit, but because it's hard to avoid all the spoilers, but I don't actually know. Like, for example, I knew that Jadzia Dax died at some time because in one of my live streams, somebody was like, that's Worf's wife. And I was like, oh, Worf gets married. And then someone was like, and then she dies. And I was like, and then she dies. You know, so I did know that was going to happen, that they were going to get married and that she was going to die, but I didn't know when. I didn't know how. So in watching the show, I was just kind of like, at some point this is going to happen, you know? So that's kind of where I'm at now. Sometimes people jump in the chat and they say spoilers because they don't know that I don't know. But if you're here, you know that I don't know. Next week, I'm going to be talking about my highs and lows from season 4. So if you want to see that conversation, be sure to subscribe and come join me next week. Season 4 had a lot of good episodes. I did want to share some of the episodes that really stood out to me. So I'll do that really quick. And then maybe we'll call it a live stream. Is it better than Voyager? Ooh, that's a good question. It's just different. People are refusing not to share. Yeah, exactly. People are refusing not to share spoilers so that I can actually watch the show. Yes, I have seen Voyager before. I've seen all of TNG. I have an entire podcast called the TNG Podcast, going episode by episode through TNG. I watched TNG when it was on air. I watched Voyager when it was on air. And somehow I skipped DS9. So I didn't watch it when it was on air. So I'd never seen it before. That's why it's new. And I've seen Picard, Lower Decks, Discovery, Strange New Worlds. Did I miss one? Prodigy. Like, I've seen all of those. I have not seen most of TOS. I've seen a couple of episodes, and every time I go back to watch it, like, I don't want to. So I haven't seen a lot of TOS. I've seen just like a handful of episodes. And I saw most of the first season of Enterprise, but I saw it when it aired, so I don't remember anything about it. So basically, I haven't seen Enterprise. Okay, a few more things that I liked from season 3. I liked that we get, I think, do we get the Defiant in season 3? Or was that season? Yeah, we get the Defiant in season 3. No, when did we get the Defiant? Maybe we get that in season 2. Yeah, Meridian was dumb. Let's see. Seeing Thomas Riker again was awesome. The past tense, I liked it. The whole Bell Riots thing, I thought it was interesting. Let's see, what else? Visionary, the one where Miles O'Brien kept jumping back in time and coming forward, that was super interesting. I like that one. Distant Voices, where Bashir was having this horrible nightmare because some alien had like electrified his brain and trapped him in his mind, and Deep Space Nine was like a horror show. I thought they did a really good job with his oldening makeup in that one when they made him like an old guy. I thought they did a good job with that. So kudos on that one. Through the Looking Glass, y'all know I don't love the mirror episodes, but I really hated the first one like a lot. And I hate all the subsequent mirror episodes not nearly as much. Like, because they feel like complete episodes with a plot, and, you know, it's not just about Kira being sexy. There's like things going on in the episodes that make them a lot more interesting. And I liked seeing Sisko's wife again, which was a surprise. I didn't know they were going to do that. I liked Explorers when they had the solar sails, when Jake and Sisko were like on the old timey ship. That was cool. It looked cool. It looked cool in space, and it was fun seeing them inside the ship. I think that was nice. I liked meeting Quark's mom. She seems like just such a riot. And then the last one, the Adversary, where the ambassador is a changeling, and then we finally see a changeling harm another. Like, I thought, again, that episode was kind of like, this is why the changelings are unbeatable. They could just be anybody. They could just be anybody. And I know, and we're going to talk about this next week when we talk about season 4, but like, I feel like they have to work really hard to make the Dominion less of a threat, because on the face of it, everything we've learned about the Dominion so far in season 3, they should be unstoppable and they should flatten the Federation easily. So they have to keep doing things to make them not as strong. Kind of reminds me of the Borg. The Borg were like, so, they were just mindless drones, mindless automatons who just go out there to conquer and assimilate. And they were pretty much unbeatable. So they had to start creating things to make them more beatable. They had the Borg Queen, so there could be like a central focus. And if we infect the Queen, it affects everybody else. Or like all the drones are connected, so we can just affect this one. We can pull this one thing, and then it hurts everybody else. Or we can give them their individuality back, and they won't work as effectively. You have to find ways to weaken them to make them beatable because they're so completely unbeatable. The Jem'Hadar are completely unbeatable. The Changelings are completely unbeatable. The Vorta are pretty beatable, but the first time we see them, they have that like telekinesis thing where they can like knock people over with their brains. Do we ever see that again? Because I haven't seen a single Vorta do that since that first time. And I feel like that's an underutilized ability. So if they use that ability and / had other abilities we don't know about, the Vorta could also be totally unbeatable. So I don't know. Okay, that was just like a total rant. Tough little ship. I love it. The TNG podcast is super fun. The best place to nerd out in the Alpha Quadrant. I totally agree. Have you seen Enterprise? I have, but since I don't remember, we're going to say no, I have not. I used to sneak out of bed to watch TOS. I love that. Why did you have to sneak, though? Was it on really late? Why did you have to be sneaky about watching TOS? Oh, haven't seen a lot of TOS. Lots of threads here. Yeah, I have not seen a lot of TOS. I've seen a handful of them, and sometimes people are like, oh, I don't want to do spoilers, and it's like, that was from the 60s. You can't keep the spoilers from me on TOS. Like, just spoil everything. That's totally fine. Back when there was only 3 channels. Ugh, so rough. First world problems. It's a tough little ship. The first time DS9 was on, I kind of didn't get it. I rewatched later, and now I like it. I think it. I think I didn't really understand the religious parts of Deep Space Nine the first time I saw it. Yeah, there's a lot of religion, but I like that. I think it adds dimension to all the different cultures. Miles joins Kim and Naomi as not being the original versions of themselves. Oh yeah, you're right. But I consider Kim and Naomi and Miles to be the same freaking person. Like, I consider them to be the same person. I love Explorers. Explorers is so much fun. Is that one of the episodes? Oh yeah, that's the one with the solar sail. So cool. Yes, Moogie. This alone is one reason why I did not like Rom. I did not like him, I think, until solidly season 4. And this is like the perfect example. The way he goes, Moogie, and just like, oh, kills me. It kills me. If it bleeds, you can kill it. Do changelings bleed? Well, that's the question, isn't it? I miss the Borg from Q Who. I remember watching that live. It was pretty scary. Exactly. But the Borg from Q Who are so unbeatable that we needed to add more dimensions so that way they could actually be a threat that we could somehow outsmart or outgun or something. Otherwise, then it's not as fun for us to watch. But I'm like, sometimes you can just make your bad guys too overpowered. And I think the Dominion is that. They should have won instantly. Like, I mean, they had to have the founders. They had to have the prophets intervene because the Dominion is so unbeatable. So I'm super curious to see how season 7 ends. Like, I'm so curious, especially since they come back in Picard and they look all messed up. I'm like, what happened? Like, what is the tea? Like, what happened? I'm so curious. And I hope it's satisfying. I think the Vorta psychic blast was just a misdirect for that episode. So we never get to see it. We never get to see the Vorta mind blast again. That's such a bummer. Did they do the mind blast in Star Trek Online? Because I feel like that's like a skill they should keep. It's just interesting. It was past my bedtime. That's pretty cute that you would sneak to watch TOS. I love that. You should watch TOS. Don't watch the first pilot, The Cage, until you have seen the Menagerie, or maybe wait until the whole series. Yeah, I am going to watch it at some point. It's on the list, but this was on the list first, and I'm really glad because I'm super enjoying Deep Space Nine. They lost the Vorta mold with the psychic power. Oh, so we don't get to see it again. Ugh. I love how he says Moogie. So I hate how he says Moogie, but I think it's clear that it's a fan favorite because he says it 80 million bajillion times throughout the show. So I think that tells me that people are writing in saying, can Rom say Moogie one more time? So even though I don't like it, I realize it's a thing people like. I totally get that. DS9 first aired when I was like 12 or 13. The relationship between Benjamin and Jake meant so much to me. Yeah, it's really, really sweet. Like, it's really sweet. And I love how understanding that Benjamin always is. It's unbelievable to me as a person with a lot of experience with kids. And I really love seeing like how kind and how thoughtful he is. The problem with the Dominion is that their subjects fear the founders and they don't love the founders. But I feel like they probably could have genetically engineered them to do that too. I don't know. Okay, that's it. I'm done. We've been talking for a long time. Please subscribe if you have not yet already. Join me next week when I will be talking about the highs and lows from season 4 of Deep Space Nine. Thank you so much for joining me live. Thank you so much for everyone watching on the replay. And I will see you next week.